Thank you for joining us for the Intelligent Automation and Insurance Claims Processing. We'll begin in just a moment, giving people an opportunity to log on. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Intelligent Automation in Insurance and Claims Processing, brought to you by UiPath, HMB. I'm your host, Jeff Hafer, host with the most and MC. Also, we have speaking today, Matt Lautz from Neostella. And without further ado, we'll begin. Just introduced our speakers. That's Sathya on the left. He'll be anchoring most of the program today. We will follow with Matt, and at the end, we're going to leave 5 to 7 minutes for question and answers. We've got some that have been provided in advance. In the bottom right-hand corner of your screens, you should have a Q&A, so feel free to submit any of those questions and we'll make sure that they're addressed. If not during this session, because we've got a lot of content to cover, I'll make sure that they're addressed and sent out in a subsequent FAQs. So without further ado, so who is HMB? Harris, Mackesy, and Brennan. And you know us best by our brands. We're over 20 years in document capture, transformation, and the process automation success, especially in insurance and claims processing. You'll recognize our brands, everything from Kodak to IBML, which is a very large processing. Kofax was some of the original automation for document handling, etc. We are fully STS and on a GSA federal schedule as well. Our legacy really speaks to that capturing paper and digital documents is really fundamental to insurance and claims processing. Originally, it began as a lot of paper claims that were flowing back and forth, either mailed, emailed, or sent as a PDF. Fax, which is still predominant in healthcare and in insurance, it was the first step into the digital realm, and now we have everything from portals to exchanging digital documents. So here's the workflow that we are typically involved with in some way. So I wanted you to think about this as we present. A bot serves as a digital employee and a virtual assistant. A digital employee is somebody that you hire and you count on them to do their job, essentially unsupervised or unattended. You also have the ability to interact with that in order to change a workload or answer questions that they might have. And we'll talk a little bit about the virtual assistants that are provided by Robotic Process Automation. Couple of words from Albert Einstein, because it's always good to have people much smarter than me have input. Intellectuals solve problems, but geniuses prevent them. And we cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking that we use to create them. So it says that we should be looking at a different paradigm, and we believe that UiPath and RPA is close to nirvana as we've found. The other thing, and we'll talk a little bit about democratization during the program, those that are closest to the problems are closest to the solution. It was originally by Glenn Martin. And it asks, where will your next $1 million idea come from? And if you haven't given your departments the opportunity to weigh in and make suggestions, you may be missing a huge opportunity. Without further ado, I'll introduce Sathya Sethu.
Thank you, Jeff. Actually, you provided a very nice quotes that very well resonates with the problem, where the problem lies, right? And what we have seen is 80% of our insurance customers have seen that claims is a major area that has got a lot of problems to solve, because claims is where the moment of truth is closer to the customer. So that is where the customer realizes that the product, which is the insurance product, is actually put into use. And the moment they realize that, that is when they need to contact the insurer for actually getting benefit from that, the premiums that they have paid. That is when the moment of truth kicks in. And what is proven in the industry is the 76% of customers who had a bad experience with the current insurer simply switch the insurer. And to the contrary, 80% of customers who had a good or a very good experience with the insurer during the claims process stick to the insurer regardless of a 20% hike in the premium. So given that claims is very close, right? And also, as you rightly mentioned, Jeff, we cannot solve the problem with the same mindset of that created it, right? So many times when we look at the existing processes in an insurance company, the current processes were stitched around because of the data silos or the system silos that exist in the industry. It is not built by design, but this is built due to the way how the insurers would have grown and the culture would have grown for so many years. So given that, when we go to the next slide, we will see that how the challenges in the claims process because of those siloed systems and also the data that exists in multiple places are creating friction in the end-to-end claim processing. You could see that on one end, there is always this customers that are thinking and also believing that insurers should provide and can provide an experience similar to what Amazon can provide, what other digital channels can provide. Versus there is a reality that the incremental operational and IT cost that prevents the insurer in delivering such promises, right? Because again, stitching around all the systems, a legacy platform that are actually underlying to serve the customer's expectation is actually broken in such a way that the stitching around cost, the total cost of ownership is going to be phenomenally high. That actually leads to the customer's attrition, customer's dissatisfaction, and also finally, there is a claims leakage that comes out of it, because the claims leakage is very important. A lot of times insurers think claims leakage is more about fraud, but it is not. Claims leakage is a very broader term that includes the time taken to settle the claim, number one, that leads to fraud. And also that leads to the customer dissatisfaction, multiple calls by the customers to the contact center and claims operations, and the back and forth that happens for quite a while. And that also goes back to customer attrition that would happen with the dissatisfied customer. And when we go to the next slide, we will see that how some of the insurers who are very good leaders in the industry are looking at automation to solve this problem. So the leading insurers that have solved the claims problem by reducing the total cost of ownership while increasing the customer satisfaction, as well as preventing the claims leakage, all these three different points have adopted automation at scale. And how they have done it? They have done it at three different levels. One is that they look at some of the interdepartmental processes. The interdepartmental processes can be email triage is an example, right? Multi-channel email triage and email classification as a part of automation, but also looking into a multi-channel ecosystem or multi-channel intake of claims first notice of loss, and not just stopping there, but also going to the next step of data aggregation, as well as the downstream process kickstart, and creating that a decision-making ecosystem to present it back to the to the special investigation units and also down to the subrogation units, so that end-to-end claims process across this department are taken care. And within the department, there are different departments even within the claim. We call it claims as a department, but there is a contact center that actually addresses only certain processes. There are claims adjuster who address different processes. And also there are special investigation units and fraud units that take care of certain things. So within the sub-departments, how do you automate? And then individual tasks. We have seen the insurers have also gone bottom up and tried to solve the the problems of individuals that are working, because what we see is the existing people or employees who are handling these claims have so much of knowledge retained on them, and most of the processes are custom to the specific organizations. And many times when the claims adjusters retire or go out of the workforce, insurers are stuck with the knowledge loss, as well as the people who are coming new to the workforce. They don't want to do this moving the paper or moving the data from point A to point B. Instead of that, they are looking at technology to support them, or digital technology to support them in decision making. Let the automation take care of moving the papers and making the paper, as Jeff was showing, the paper that comes in should be digitized already, and not only digitized, but also the data extracted, and let my decision making system provide me a decision, and I will overlay a human decision on top of it and resolve the problem, is how they are seeing, which you can see in the next slide. Here is the old method versus the new method, right? The old method is labor intensive, where it comes through the paper and then manual data processing, and there is a lack of visibility to this end-to-end claim process. Whereas in the new method, where the insurers have adopted automation on scale, there is a self-service, what I call it as shift left, where the customer is provided a self-service mechanism through virtual assistant. And Jeff actually presented that in the initial slides, where the automation should consist of this virtual assistants as well as the remote assistants, or the digital assistants, right? Or digital employees or digital workforce that collaborate together to provide a self-service to the customer upstream, and then taking the documents and then providing those insights for the decision-making process. And if you look at it, the measurable benefits are much beyond a few minutes savings or better efficiency, but also that decreasing of operational cost, reduction of claims delays, improvement in accuracy of settlement of claims. And also you could see that obviously the claims leakage prevention. These are some of the benefits that you will get out of it. And when we go to the next slide, you will see that how different automation capabilities can be orchestrated end to end to provide a seamless experience to the customer. And as I was mentioning, you start with a virtual assistant, then use document capabilities to extract the document. And also on the downstream, you aggregate data from multiple sources and provide the adjuster with a clean dashboard to take action on the claim and trigger the downstream processes. And across this, you can have a different policy administration system, different claim system, and a different accounting system, as well as a different CRM. So automation enables you to orchestrate all this data much more accurately across all the systems. Not only that, it also can deliver the near straight through processing that is required to improve the claims efficiency. And we can see a demo next in depicting this end-to-end claim process.
Julia, you're going to be able to help me cue that up? There we are.
So in this, we will see that the chatbot, many insurers have started chatbot as a honorary frequently asked question assistance. Rather here, main reason being that the chatbots actually need to be connected with the backend systems. And I was talking about multiple systems that include legacy system in the background. And also many times the beneficiaries like this, Liddy, will be comfortable to have a conversation starting with a chatbot rather than going into a website. So given that the chatbot or a virtual assistant actually gathers all the information that a contact center representative would gather, and then hands over those information to a robot, which is an unattended bot. We call it as a remote digital assistant or workforce that actually goes and gathers the information from policy administration system. And then once that is done, it actually gives it back to the virtual assistant along with a two-factor authentication, similar to how a contact center representative would do. And the chatbot provides a two-factor authentication, asks for that, and also it sends an email asking for it. And once the claimant provides that, it provides the policy information and start asking the question for the claims, because the intent was given as claims, right? So they start gathering the information. The virtual assistant start gathering the information that are relevant to the claims. And also at the end of it, it can gather the documents that are actually requirements for that. That includes death certificates and also a death certificate and also ID proof. Then go back and validate the information again with the policy administration system, because to make sure that the information is passed securely. And once that is validated, it takes the extracted data from those supplementary documents. That includes, as I was telling about death certificate and ID proof, and matches that with the information, beneficiary information there, then starts logging the claim. So it submits, it actually adds all the information in the claim system and submits the claims, take the information from the status, and it will pass on to the chatbot, so that the chatbot will present the claims information or acknowledgement to the customer. In the meantime, the robot goes through the next level of process. It actually validates the claim and prepares the data for a claims manager or claims adjuster to take action on that. Well, the customer now has got all the information. The customer, after a week, can come back and provide the similar information. We have just skipped the steps here. So the initial steps are two-factor authentication again. When they provide the claims ID, again, it will be connecting to a robot that is in the queue, and the next available robot in the queue goes and picks the information, then goes to a claim system, searches for the claim, quickly it checks for the status, comes back to the claimant and provides the status. Usually we see that there is in the industry standard, for every claim that is being submitted, there is 7 to 10 times calls that come only just to check the status and also do the follow processing. You can avoid those calls and measure 80% of those calls by implementing a virtual assistant and a robot together. And another example of this is one of the customers have started looking at connecting the virtual robot with the backend system similar to this. The initial estimation was around 6 months to implement it, but with UiPath's platform, it was implemented within 8 weeks. So there is an easy way, seamless way, most cost-effective way to connect this digital technology like virtual assistant, and also, as Jeff was mentioning, the paper forms that come in from different channels, and connecting it to the multiple technologies that you might be having in the background to achieve this seamless claimant experience. Mm-hmm. And we can go to the next one. So we saw an end-to-end view. Now this is the view where we also see many insurers have started rolling out a bottom-up view, as I was talking about, for claims operations. A digital assistant that sits in the desktop will help you and your claims managers to perform day-to-day functions in such a way that they become much more decision makers rather than data movers or paper movers. And thanks for the opportunity for me to present here. I would like to give the time back to Jeff and also to Matt from Neostella.
Well, thank you, Sathya. Terrific information. We've tried to present things at a high level, not just conceptually, because these are all deliverables. So we gave a specific example of a claims process. What we find is that from a customer satisfaction standpoint, the reason that they no longer have to make those 7 to 10 status checks is that the persistence and the constant communication or updates, at least weekly, that can be outbound and handled by a chatbot, for example. So as long as they're staying informed, there's no reason for them to say, okay, is it going to take another 10 weeks? They have no expectation for the actual process time involved with whatever process or whatever transfers need to take place, including outside agencies that might be affected. So overall, this significantly reduces the workload, reduces the redundant workload, and improves the overall satisfaction of claim. So I think we're going to transition now to Matt Lautz with Neostella. Matt, I'll let you make some quick introductions. I believe you've got a couple of slides that carry that in. We'll give them an idea of what you're about and how you're helping customers every day with their implementations, their POCs, and their and to really organize and rank their PMO.
Absolutely, thanks, Jeff. Really appreciate it. Very nice to meet everybody on the call here. My name is Matt Lautz. I'm CEO and owner of Neostella. As this slide, which is our only slide about us, I promise, is here to do is to show you we're a global UiPath implementation partner that has a heavy volume of clients in the insurance sector. And that's why we're thrilled to chat with you here today. We have offices here in America, as well as in Europe, Asia, and South America, Central America, bringing a global team of implementation folks on our team structure to help clients just like you and really take advantage of the UiPath ecosystem, platform, and products to get the most out of what's available. So that's it on us. I just like to give you a quick overview and really spend the majority of the time talking about examples. How do we use these technologies and capabilities to assist insurance customers? And so 3 examples that we're going to talk about today. 2 involve document understanding and taking physical documents, PDF, first generation, so documents that you can copy and paste out of the PDF, second generation, so scans or faxes, and then even handwritten, and talking about how we've helped with both CMS 1500 forms for the medical claim management component, and then Accord forms for insurance companies on the intake side, specifically with commercial policies and the many 15+ Accord form formats. Then also talking about how we can take that extracted data and normalize it into consistent 837 form electronic formats to be inputted into your claim management system. So moving on to the next slide, Jeff, what I'd love to spend a few minutes here talking about is a little bit about some of the most standard ways that you can use RPA. And I like to just simplify this down to the most basic level for anybody who maybe isn't as familiar with RPA and UiPath as folks who might have been using it for years. And so you see all these great slides that Sathya talked about and that Jeff talked about. Here's to all of the different aspects of how automation, whether it's chatbots, whether it's document processing, how it can help an insurance organization. But sometimes people go, break that down to the physical steps. What can an RPA robot do? And as we start working with a client, a lot of times we get people who just say, I get the concept of what it is, but walk me through the day in the life. What can these robots do for me? As Jeff was saying, these robots can be either unattended or attended. Unattended living, and I always like to tell clients, think of unattended as you hired a new employee. And that new employee, a lot of people even give those unattended robots names. And they name them after movies or after actors that they like. And it sort of becomes this fun part because an unattended robot is like adding another team member to your team. And you'll start to hear companies change their terminology to our human talent and our robotic talent. You're adding a new robot talent, just like your human capital, to your infrastructure. And what can those robots do? Well, they can open and read files. And that is big because it's not just opening and reading files that are easy to read, like first generation PDFs. Like I said, it's even handwritten documents. It's opening and reading files and reading it like you would read it. That's why it's called computer vision. It's being able to actually interpret the document instead of just extract data. But then you can extract data. And that extracted data can then be auto-inserted or auto-normalized for an EDI type process. It can input data. And as that awesome video that Sathya showed, it can input across multiple systems. And that was a slowed down demo because if you let the robots go as fast as they can, it's a really short demo. And it's a really short demo because sometimes screens don't even load. The robots, in the time that it takes for the screen to load, enter data, and hit save can sometimes be faster than you can even see it and really conceptualize what it is. It can work with email and emailing forms and storing forms in email. And so taking a lot of that data and interacting with the emails is how so many claims start, whether that's directly to somebody within your claim team or whether it's to a broker. But being able to interface with all of those email formats is another critical part of what these robots can do. What I always like to say as a last step is, if you can type it, if you can click it, and if you can see it on your screen, a robot can do it so long as you can describe it. If you can't describe it, if you can't say, here is how we do it, and there's 2 or 3 exceptions, and here's the 2 or 3 exceptions, a robot can do it. You can't do that, and every answer is, well, that requires a meeting, or I got to talk to 3 or 4 people and we handle each one of those separately. Those are the tasks that a robot is not going to be able to do, but a robot will be able to discern when they're at those steps and ask a human for their involvement, and then bring it back and finish the task. Moving on to the next slide, Jeff, if you would, please. You can click through these animations. Sorry, I talked a little too fast. Is what are some of the other aspects of how you can use this within a contact center? And I really like to talk about this when we're talking with folks in the insurance sector, because contact centers in a lot of industries are only a cost center. And insurers are starting to see their contact center as also becoming a sales and upsell opportunity. And this is a really big aspect of where RPA can change your contact center from being a cost center to not only being a cost center where you're having to deal with claims, questions, et cetera, but also an immediate upsell opportunity. So, and then more importantly, can decrease that cost and drive average handle time efficiency, can drive first call resolution, et cetera. So what all can these robots do within the contact center? Well, first, they have the ability to do things such as verifying information at login. And this can be really helpful as you're thinking through, the typical phone call that starts with, can you please hold for 30 seconds or 45 seconds while I look up your information? And you can click through, Jeff, as I'm talking. I'll pull up text on each one of these. It gives you that ability to streamline pulling that data, presenting it directly to the agent and helping them with verifying that data, and allowing them to pull data from any system, not just one system. That includes a lot with these upsell prompts is another example. And you'll see with data retrieval as well, is a lot of times those agents in your contact center have to spend 2 to 3 minutes going and pulling data. It might be pulling data from emails, it might be pulling from multiple claim systems and then copying and pasting into a contact center system. It might be putting that data in for a post-call wrap, which I'll talk about in a minute. But one of the biggest use cases in the contact center is to normalize that data retrieval, simplify it so that that agent is able to speak as fast and work with that customer of yours as rapidly as possible instead of spending so much time looking up data. And that's where you really get to that upsell opportunity. When you call a contact center, you're talking about a claim. If the agent says to you, and would you mind waiting 2 to 3 minutes while I look up if I could sell you something else at a better price? You're going to go, no, you're going to hang up on them. There's no way that you're going to sit there and wait for that as a consumer, especially if you're frustrated because you just got in a car accident or you just had something happen with your home and you're having to call and talk to your insurance company about a claim. But if that RPA robot, while that agent is talking to that consumer in this retail example and is able to pull that data onto the screen and immediately have it available to the agent to say, as an FYI, here's 2 things that this customer currently doesn't have from us that based on data we know about them, we could sell and drive efficiency to that consumer in the form of cost savings. That agent does have that ability to quickly say, hey, and by the way, I can see you don't have homeowners insurance with us. Here's a price quote based on what we know. It's going to be in this range and bundled together, you save 20%. Would you be interested in hearing more about that? Bringing that data directly forward now drives a completely different experience. Same thing with the commercial area where you're able to start talking about maybe other lines of business than what you currently have with them. And then lastly is the data entry and post-call wrap. This has always been the biggest efficiency save in a contact center is on AHL, average handle time. And in your average handle time with that AHT statistic, it's the #1 thing that you're trying to lower typically in a contact center while not sacrificing net promoter score or quality. So it's sort of that pull. You're trying to decrease your average talk time, average handle time, but you're trying to do it and ensure that you're not decreasing satisfaction. And then that next area that you want to close that gap on is your wrap time. Because the last thing you want to do is have your agents spending 20, 30, 40% of their day typing notes at the end of a call. The average contact center agent spends 50% of the time they spent on a call typing notes and completing post-call wrap items. So if it's a 5-minute call, they spend 2.5 minutes on post-call wrap. One of the best use cases for an RPA robot, in addition to upsell, data retrieval, et cetera, is streamlining that post-call wrap to copying the data into the multiple systems that need that data, to sending post-call wrap notifications, whether it's an email or a live chat or an SMS or whatever it might be, and interfacing with all of those disparate systems to drive that cohesive post-call experience. All you need to do is save, on average, 7% efficiency in your contact center to pay for an RPA initiative. 7%. When you consider that 20 to 40% of minimum of your average agent's time is spent in post-call wrap, simply shaving a few seconds off of each post-call wrap buys the licensing and the professional services to implement. And that's based on a study of 100 agent contact center with implementing the first 3 processes. It's incredible what the ROI can be in your contact center. So let's give you 1 or 2 examples of this and show you how we've done this with a few customers. So we had a client that specifically was an insurance provider leveraging and looking to interface with the CMS 1500 form. So this provider, this claims management company, was receiving the CMS 1500 forms, medical claim forms. They range from 2 to 4 pages. They have multiple table grids. And the biggest issue that this claim management company was dealing with is they had incredibly good scanners that could do a lot of the data cleansing for them. It could even help with some of the extraction. But the challenge that they had was the second generation PDFs, the scans, the faxes that would come in, many times were skewed. So sometimes the scans were tilted 15 degrees because when it went through the scanner at the customer site, it got tilted, or it had pixelation on it. Or the worst is when you've got it so that the data overlaps the lines of the form. So now how can an OCR engine determine, is that a T or is that an I, but it's going across the line on the form and now it's made it a T? That creates a huge barrier to automating and driving automated efficiency of extracting that data and inputting it. So what we did for this customer is we leveraged UiPath, a variety of UiPath products. The first is we built a custom pre-processing and imaging process that straightens the forms if they're tilted and removes any pixelation from the background when you get it, when you have a bad scan quality. And it does that through a pre-processing application that we wrote for them on UiPath's platform. And then the really incredible feature was leveraging AI robots, which is a feature of UiPath that allowed us to extend a machine learning model. We trained it with over 7,000 CMS 1500 forms that we auto-generated using UiPath. And we were able to create it so that it removes all of the form from the scan and only leaves the data that was entered in addition to the form lines and the form text that came on the default form. So if you get a scan where the text is overlaying the form, that form gets wiped out from behind the image and leaves you with only the text that was added. We're able to increase the automated ability to extract data by over 25% increase through that one step alone. And when you normally look at building a custom machine learning model, you think of months and months of times, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and complex data scientists who are a lot smarter than me. You don't need to do that with UiPath's AI robots. From start to finish, that custom ML model took about 4.5 weeks to put into production testing and is now getting run through production testing. Those are the aspects of where you can then take that, and now you can use document understanding, DU, which is UiPath's product to extract data from these forms, normalize that data, upwards of 80 to 100 data elements into the 837 format, and then automatically send it through to get inputted into the claims management process. This is a tremendous change in automation because not only are we taking a document, taking it, converting it into text and putting it into the proper 837 format to input, but more importantly, we're able to show how through RPA and through the ability that you have an entire platform, you can actually go even a step further and change the quality of the image, change the actual document that's sent to you to be the format you need, whether it's straightened or whether it's cleaned, to allow for that autonomous input into your systems and freeing up humans to only work on exceptions. So this was an awesome use case that we're really thrilled to have just a great customer that we're working with on this and to see the opportunities of what it can do for them. The next example that I like to talk about is more on the commercial insurance side for commercial inputs of Accord forms. So as we all know, on the general liability policies, cyber policies, they all start with, in most cases, an accord form being filled out. And that accord form has a variety of formats, 15, 16, 17 different formats, plus some varying state formats. But within those, you've got a set of data that is consistently needing to be extracted. You have a need to classify those documents to upload them into the proper document management systems. And then equally, you have different data, such as revenue numbers, et cetera, that just need to be taken off the document and put into your application of source. That's usually done by a human right now. And it's not rocket science, but it's a critical step that has to happen. And in many cases, those forms are coming scanned. Those forms are coming even handwritten and need to be, especially if you're dealing with small businesses, and need to be entered into your system, your system of choice. That's, again, where using UiPath robots has allowed us to work with clients. And the first thing that we did is we built custom machine learning models around the accord forms, and we have those now and own those. That allows us to expedite the process for our clients to go live by taking advantage of these existing ML models that we built to help extract the data, including handwritten data from these accord forms, be able to show how we can get incredibly accurate entry into your applications. This can save anywhere from minutes to tens of minutes minimum per application process, and allow humans to focus on actually analyzing the data, underwriting the data, and making educated decisions, instead of having to input all this data to even generate a quote or to make underwriting decisions. We empower the humans through this to use the true critical thinking they need to help you make decisions on what to do with the data, instead of having to have an army of people who are just there typing data to see what you should do next. So hopefully these give you folks some examples of what's possible leveraging RPA, to give some real life examples of the power of both opportunities, whether it's from upselling or post-call wrap opportunities, and then two good document understanding examples, one in the medical claim and then one in the upfront commercial insurance space, of how clients are using, both at a claim management, at a broker level, using RPA to really change their input process and change their contact center processes to drive efficiency. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Jeff.
Well, I wanted to say thank you. I wanted to open up the floor. Julia, are you able to monitor for any Q&A that was submitted during the session? If not, I've got some of the advanced submissions that were posted.
I'm able to monitor.
Okay.
We currently do not have any questions through the Q&A.
Okay, we're being very clear, and I appreciate that point. The first question was submitted from one of our Western insurers, and they were asking about democratization. How do I know whether I'm going to use a attended or an unattended bot? How smart does my process have to be to know which is the best option for me? Sathya, you want to take that?
Yeah, definitely. So how a process can be determined attended versus unattended depends on the mapping of the personas. That's the reason we have moved away from purely looking at robots as a sort of technical capability to more of a capability that will supplement your workforce, right? And Jeff, to your point, when you started that initial slide, you mentioned about looking at the automation from a perspective of your digital workforce as well as your virtual assistant. So that is the starting point. Then what you should determine is, okay, I want to automate this process. Is it a unique process that is very specific, or a micro process that is specific to a particular persona? Or once I develop it for this persona, is there any broader applicability? So there are two ways to look at it. One is a top-down approach and then a bottom-up approach. The moment you see that, for example, email classification, will an individual need that? Because I can get hundreds of emails a day, and then I can say that I need an email classification as a claims adjuster, right? Or am I looking at indexer that is sitting in the enterprise function, where that indexer sits and looks at all the emails and then drags and drops each bucket, right? Hey, this is actually a claims email. This is a claims follow-up email. This is a new business submission follow-up email. That sort of a thing. Then you would now know that, okay, for a function such as email classification, you need an unattended bot, because that goes across multiple departments, that goes across multiple business functions, versus a claims adjuster, they in their desktop, if they want to act upon those emails, then you will require a bottom-up automation, which is an attended bot, where the bot can open the information, look at the information, use machine learning as Matt was talking about, right? Look at that, and then take the data, present it to the adjuster or the claims manager, so that they can take downstream action. This is an attended bot scenario.
Terrific. Great examples, and we see that in a number of places where they're processing a document, for example, or where a social security number maybe needs to do a double validation. Rather than enter it twice, they're able to put it in front of two representatives. I'm seeing 457251111. What are you seeing? And that person may verify, and it go through the process where maybe as we talked about the skewing and the anti-skewing and cleaning up that data from a physical to the digital world really accelerates that process. So the more, if you will, the cleaner the data becomes, your ability to do more pre-process to clean up that data, the better your reads, the better the process, and the faster or the more acceleration from the automation. Question for you, Matt. In a typical project, what percentage of the project is software related, and what percentage of the project would you say is professional services or internal resources?
Yeah, great question. So your typical project, and again, most clients, when they look at this ratio, they are looking at having multiple processes run on, say, the UiPath platform. So typically you're spreading the cost of licenses over at least a few, 3, 4, 5 processes. Normally what we do see is about a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 times professional services to 1 time licenses. And one of the biggest reasons for that is UiPath software is very reasonably priced for all of the power and capabilities that it provides. And the reason for professional services is to ensure that process is automated with every exception, not just the happy path. So a lot of folks, when they think through automation, they think first just about a happy path. And a lot of time that's only 30 to 40% of setting it up the right way. And that happy path is just the 80-20 rule, that 80% of the time, the perfect path from start to finish. Where you tend to get higher costs, but can drive a lot of value is maybe some of those exception paths. And then lastly is putting testing around it. One of the great capabilities within RPA now, especially that UiPath has produced, is the ability to put full testing around everything. And with that testing, we can ensure that we're getting we can guarantee that we're getting the results expected, and then we kick to a human if those results are not being achieved. And putting that intelligence around is what makes RPA not only drive efficiency, but drive accuracy, and in many cases, higher level accuracy than even a human.
Terrific. Great input. The next question, I think I want to handle this one, but it's specifically asking about displacing FTEs, employees in an organization, with virtual. Does that mean I'm going to have layoffs? Does that mean I'm reducing staff? Sathya, you want to field that?
Yeah, definitely. So that comes back to the persona-based view I was talking about, right? The moment at some point of time, there was definitely a slight concern that because the view that every vendor out in the market has presented was by taking out those repetitive tasks, we are going to reduce the workforce, right? That did not happen. Actually, even with COVID, if you see, and there is a World Economic Forum report out there, specifically in banking, financial services, and insurance, there is no firing that has happened because of the RPA implementation. Rather, the employees have actually improved the productivity and also improved their way of living, because even after COVID, wherever there is a RPA project that has been implemented, employees have not complained about long hours, versus where they have not implemented RPA, they have said that they were impacted by that. Their personal time was impacted by long hours of working. Whereas the insurance executives across the board, both implemented RPA and not implemented RPA, they said that productivity has gone up. So now comes to the point that many employees have been talking about how they can actually start using some of this digital assistants as a part of their day-to-day job, so that they can release some of the works to actually improve the quality of living, number one, personal living quality, as well as how I can contribute, because previously I used to have 10 of my colleagues performing this, 2 have retired. Now I need to do the same type of work or same volume with 8 people, because company is not planning to recruit 2 more people, or somebody they have recruited, I need to train them for another 12 to 18 months, because these functions require a lot of brain power, right? And the people who are taking out, they are taking the knowledge out. And how to codify the knowledge, retain the knowledge, and also somebody who is coming in, I don't want to spend much time with them. Rather, how I can help them, with the codified knowledge to roll out another digital assistant for them so that they can continue the work. So it's in multiple facets. The employee problem has already been resolved. So employees are now actually with so much love, they are adopting the robots as digital assistants in their desktop.
And hey, Jeff.
Go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say, I know with you screen sharing, it's hard for you to see the questions. A new question just came in that I think would probably transition well for me. Do you mind if I read that off and take it, Jeff?
Please do.
And why I do that, somebody else had asked if you could transition back to the slide that shows your contact information, Jeff.
Sure.
As much as I love the advertising, I want to respect that question. So a great question here in regards to typical maturity of a process before it's the right time to automate. Mm-hmm. And how mature does a process have to be, and how well known does that process have to be before it's ready for automation? And that's a really good question. So again, thank you, Jeff, for letting me chime in and read that one. I think it's a great question for the group. There's a lot of times a misconception on that a process has to be perfectly defined and ready for automation. A lot of times people come to us with nothing but an idea. I know we need to be more efficient in X. And they stop and they go, help. And a big part of what we do as a partner, but also leveraging the technology of UiPath, is to help you identify that process. And that's one of the really important things, is that the use of RPA platforms like UiPath prior to you having everything defined is actually able to help you define it. Because UiPath has both process mining and task mining, where we can gather programmatically how people are doing processes, show that to you in a visualization, including all of your non-happy paths, and help you decide the right way to automate that. And that's a really important part of why it's important to actually engage before. But then second is because we can help talk through with you how you might want to change your process now to fully leverage these new capabilities of RPA that you didn't have before. If you spend 2 or 3 months planning exactly how you want the process to work, but you don't engage a change of thought process of how should it work now that I have all these new capabilities, you're going to be redoing half of that work. And a lot of the manual work to define the process can be automated for you up front using task capture, process mining, and task mining to programmatically get you that data, instead of spending hours and hours and hours documenting or in conference rooms or phone calls trying to put those processes together. So I think that's just, I thought that was a great question. I want to make sure we got that addressed, Jeff.
Thank you, Matt. I wanted you both to address the question of, well, why don't I just fix the process? Why do I need duct tape and glue to hold together a process that should be fixed in the first place? And I want to weigh on this first, because I also come from the healthcare space, and a program that is as complex and runs so many operations, such as an Epic, for example, or a true policy management system that's end to end. the more customization you do, the more tweaks that I do to make that application fit or mold around my business, the more complex and the higher my change management and lifecycle costs become for that core. I think these are easy ways to, and if you continue to push the application vendor for those improvements, it is possible over time to retire a bot or retire a attended or unattended bot over time and repurpose that investment, repurpose that CPU cycle and that bot to other activities. So the question is, in insurance, why don't I just fix the process? Why hire a bot, or why get involved in an RPA project? Sathya, you want to address that first?
Yeah. So coming to why to, I would say why to fix, or whether you need to. I would slightly change that to whether you need to fix or not. Right. Mm-hmm. So it depends. This might look like a consulting answer, but it is true, because it also depends on how deeper that a particular process has been embedded into the organization, number mm-hmm. one. Second thing is whether that process, that particular way of doing it, is adding value to the organization. And third thing is that whether that process, that doing that additional step, is adding value to the customer, because many times one of the steps can add a value to the customer. It may not add value to the organization, but it can improve customer experience, right? I'll give you one quick example here. I was doing a consulting exercise with, this is 5 years ago, a consulting exercise with one of top 5 retirement providers in US market. One of the steps they were doing was actually the last step that we're doing, about asking customer that do they want to roll over that particular fund, 401k, to a retirement fund, right? And then transferring it to somebody else in the onboarding side. But based on one of Six Sigma or Lean or Six Sigma function, what they did was, they, without going into details, they said that, okay, because of that, customer actually takes another 3 minutes. The specific customer service representative was taking 3 minutes to know the qualification that there's reading through all this information to the customers, right? So the average call volume was around 24 minutes. They wanted to cut it down to 18. They cut down this portion. The customer net promoter score went up, but the customer fund also went up out of the door. Mm-hmm. Right? So you may want to, so it's not a binary question, right? Then what we did was, we found that there is a percentage of our specific type of customers where you want to actually, that there is a propensity to recycle the fund into a retirement fund. Mm-hmm. Versus there are customers, there are particular type of, it may be, we started with a simple scenario of like less than 10,000, right? Anyone who is having less than 10,000, go ahead and do that, right? So when we started applying it, we did A/B testing, we started applying it, we found that they generated more revenue than previously what they were generating, right? Mm-hmm. So it is not a binary question. You need to see that how it will help your organization, your customer, and also to your employees, what value it is adding. Ask these 3 questions before actually tweaking the process and automating it, or if all the 3 make sense, just automate it. Mm-hmm. Matt, I would like to get your viewpoint on that, because you are doing tremendous consulting in this area, right? So what do you think?
Yeah, no, great question, Sathya. And at the same time, I'll answer another question that just came through, which is, I think, one of the other reasons why it's important to go through the automation instead of just fix the process is, sometimes the process isn't broken. Sometimes the process is working well, but it is still inefficient use of human time. And so, there's sometimes a belief that you should only automate that which is broken. It is equally important to automate a process that's working incredibly well, but is repetitive, manual, and time consuming, and can be automated to free up those humans to do more efficient tasks or more mental capacity needed tasks. So that's one of the other things that we talk to our clients a lot about is it's not just about identifying the broken or the bad processes, but it's also identifying the processes that are not the best use of time. And that brought up this next question, knowing we have just a minute or two here, Jeff, which is how long does it typically take to complete a process, such as like a claims process? That's the other biggest advantage of RPA versus middleware and other types of enterprise implementations. Your average RPA process takes 8 to 12 weeks for a nice mid-level process to go live. It doesn't take 6 months, 12 months, 18 months like a typical middleware or enterprise applications. We actually just finished a project with a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, a big enterprise, and I share that so people understand there was change management requirements, InfoSec, security requirements. This wasn't a small business. And they put a dedicated team of 3 developers, and we launched 13 processes in just under 14 weeks for them. So that is a tremendous amount of automation in a very short period of time and with a very reasonable amount of spend.
Terrific. Well, we're about at the top of the hour. I've got 2 minutes till. I think out of respect for our audience, and I thank our audience for your attendance, I will, yes, make the materials, that's always the question, available to you. I think my plan will be to take the recording and post it on YouTube, because it will likely be large and terrific information, and send a link to people that were able to attend and people that sent me notes after that they couldn't attend but wanted the information. So Sathya and Matt, I thank you both for terrific information. UiPath and Neostella are significant partners with HMB in helping us find the right answer at the right cost and deliver on time. So without further ado, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks, Julia.